The next speaker is Øystein Botillen. He's coming from Yara, and he's working with a company that really tries to change the world as well and help. He has a long experience from working abroad with both African and Asian corporations. And now you're working in Africa with the Yara and how to develop new business model for the farmers, to address for the farmers. And we're very excited to hear more about that.
Thank you. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to talk about corporate social responsibility and projects within that type of framework. I'm going to talk about how we engage and how we do business in Africa. And I will start by giving a bit of context. But first, for those who do not know Yara, Yara is a large Norwegian fertilizer company, or a company that delivers sustainable solutions for agriculture and the environment. But we are more commonly known for the fertilizer products. We have 8,000 employees worldwide. We are located in more than 50 countries, and we do sales in more than 150. Revenues and other income in 2011 was $14.4 billion. And Yara's mission is to strive for better yield, delivering good returns for farmers, industrial customers, our owners, and society at large. Due to the rising population and changing consumption habits, the world has to produce the same amount of food in the next 40 years as it did in the past 8,000. I think that's, worth reflecting upon. It goes without saying that this is a major challenge for the world. And solving global food security challenge requires a joint effort. It will require partnerships of trust and respect. I like this slide. It really shows how big Africa is. It's bigger than India, China, Argentina, Western Europe, and the United States of America together. So Africa is obviously key to global food security. And the potential of making an impact that will make a real difference is very high in Africa. Some further context. The cereal yields in Africa are only 40% compared to the rest of the developing world. 60% of remaining unused arable land on Earth is in Africa. Fertilizer application rates in Africa is only 1/10 of the global average. Yara started to engage more systematically and strategically in 2004. I think it was a spin-off of some more than average committed people in CSR-oriented departments. Before that, it was more of a pure supply and trade relationship. We moved tons of fertilizer from other places to Africa. But it was not, an integral and strategic part of strategic business development, which it is today. Several initiatives have been taken by Yara and others since Kofi Annan called for an African Green Revolution in 2004. And I will talk about a couple of them. In 2006, Yara invited some key resource people and institutions to Oslo to discuss and develop ideas for how the public and the private sector could, in a partnership, work together to improve food security and agriculture in Africa. This initiative is today developed into something called the African Green Revolution Forum. It migrated from an Oslo-based type of conference meeting place to Africa in 2010. In September last year, more than 1,000 people gathered in Arusha to discuss and debate and harness some initiatives that could improve agriculture and food security in Africa. It has become a significant African platform for dialogue. And it has been done in the spirit of collaborative effort. At the UN General Assembly in 2008, Yara launched the concept of agricultural growth corridors. That soon developed into a very, high traction type of activity in Tanzania and Mozambique, and caught the attention of some senior politicians and aid bureaucrats worldwide. And it's sort of directly related to the development of Grow Africa and the recently launched G8 New Alliance for Food Security and Nutrition. I will talk a bit more about the Grow Africa initiative. In 2011, Yara was asked to come up with ideas and engage to see how we could find ways of doing similar things that was done in Tanzania and Mozambique, to be replicated as a platform for discussions and debate and investments in African agriculture. That was the origin of what the Grow Africa we're seeing today. Grow Africa is now a partnership with real leadership and buy-in at the country level. Key African leaders do provide leadership themselves. It's not something that is driven by external forces or exclusively by the aid communities. In 2012, Grow Africa was instrumental in prompting private sector commitments totaling over $3 billion in new investments, which have to date engaged over 800,000 farmers across 8 African countries, with 300 million in sales from these farmers fed into the market system. In my opinion, this really shows the power of collaboration. Complementing this type of high-level engagement and global partnership and alliance building, Yara is also equally focused on delivering results on the ground. And results are emerging. The farmer on the left is called Zakaria Elicious. He's from Mozambique. He's today producing 5 metric tons of maize from his 1.5 hectare farm plot. That's 3 times the average in that area. He's also 1/3 owner of ECA, an innovative extension and marketing company established in a cluster of evolving agribusinesses. So he is indirectly and directly relating to several off-take arrangements where you have international and national companies. It could be a brewery, it could be a pork and poultry industry. The point is that Zakaria Elicious is earning money from his business. The title is Inclusive Agribusiness Development. I think that's 3 words reflecting a lot of what the strategic kind of ambition of Yara's engagement in Africa is. To get Africa growing, you need to grow with smallholders, and you need the smallholders to make more money than they do today. Smallholder farmer development sits at the core of the nature of Yara Ghana's work as well. Perhaps the strongest example is the Ghana Grains Partnership, Masara Nasiki, which means maize for prosperity. Yara partnered with a Ghana Dutch company and started to invest in this producer association in 2009. All the Masara Nasiki farmers have seen significant increase in yields and profit. The association now reaches approximately 8,500 farmers, and I think someone has claimed it's the biggest producer association that you find in Western Africa. Resulting in 2012 in nearly 12,000 hectares of high-quality maize cultivation through improved technology and management practices. It also led to almost $8 million of produce being sourced from smallholders, 100% of which met quality standards and went towards further value addition in country in the form of 85 new jobs. So, what can we learn about this, and how could we sort of reflect a bit on Africa and the youth? Africa south of Sahara has the world's fastest growing population and the youngest. By 2050, the subcontinent will be the second largest, most populated region in the world, and it will be the only region in the world with a still growing rural population. This is both a great challenge and is also a great opportunity. High demand for agriculture products, both regionally and globally, is increasingly offer more opportunities for African farmers. These opportunities is not often seen as a viable career for young people. They have seen the realities of the family situation, their mothers with the butt in the air and the hoe in the ground. You know, it's tough life. Typically a farm is usually no larger than 1 to 2 hectares, and the most common farm implement is still the short hoe and the machete. Good jobs for young people are jobs that are commanding good pay and respect. And these are features that are not commonly or more typically associated with farming in Africa today. So, young people are therefore leaving Africa's farms in large number. I think this is extremely unfortunate, especially at this time where opportunities are increasing. Farmers in Africa are also getting older. Someone told me the other day that the average age of a Rwandan coffee farmer is 60 years. And the human capital needed to, to harness existing opportunities, to capitalize on these opportunities, they are lacking. Only 16% of graduates in agriculture from leading African universities enter the private sector. Something has to be done. I think there is an urgent need to invest in the rural youth of today, the farmers of tomorrow. I think young people would bring energy, vitality, and innovation into the workforce. And I also think amongst African leadership and politicians and aid bureaucrats in more general, that it needs to be better understood that the future and that agriculture is the sector that represents the most immediate opportunity to gain from the growth. And that agriculture will continue to be the dominant sector of employment for most young people in Africa for several decades ahead. Someone said at the African Green Revolution Forum last year that we have to make agriculture more sexy to attract the youth. Another person then responded by saying that money is sexy. The point is that farmers, they need to make money. And I think, if we cannot make the smallholder farmers getting more money in their pockets, we're not going to make it. And I think it's time to stop considering agriculture as a development issue. It has to be considered as a business. There are, of course, many unsolved challenges ahead, and more innovation and more energy is needed to take the agriculture in Africa into a dynamic, profitable sector. I think we need to create more interest and engagement amongst the continent's increasingly youthful population. African governments, international and national private sector companies, and development partners all have an important role to play to build solutions. And it has to be a joint effort. Thank you for your attention.
Yara definitely do good work here, and it's impressive to hear what you're saying. I have a question, and how do Yara work with the young people? How do you include them? You say it has to be a cooperation between the society, the politicians, and the private sector, and so on. What is your techniques? What is your approach?
No, I think I'm still. Can you hear me? I have to admit that we don't have a kind of strategic business strategy reaching out to the youth. But it's possible to read between the lines that if you're going to, attract the youth and make agriculture a worthwhile type of future job opportunity, you need to make money within the agricultural sector. And that's what we are aiming at. So we don't have, particular projects of any character that, we have this CSR initiative or what else, but we are training people in good agricultural practices and, women and youth, but we don't have a strategic
project.
But what we have done is sort of to encourage more focus on it, that Yara is handing out this Yara prize every year. And this year, the prize winner would be, someone that has done something worthwhile to, dealing with the youth and entrepreneurship that is needed in African agriculture.
Somebody that think that money is sexy.
Someone that, I don't want to exaggerate that point, but it's a deeper meaning in what I'm saying there, I think, and it needs to be recognized.
Any question? Yes.
I mean, I can only repeat what I said, that we don't, as a company, at least we have not yet went through a kind of internal self-assessment on that subject matter. Indirectly, through our partnership with the African Green Revolution Forum, it was debated and discussed in Arusha last year as a separate topic. It was mentioned again now in Cape Town last week when the big guys from the World Economic Forum and all that discussed. And it will obviously continue to, increase in importance, I think, in the international discourse on African agriculture. Something has to be done. One thing that we are sort of thinking about is how you could, the fact that I mentioned 16% of graduates entering private sector. It's something to do with mindsets and skill sets. We need to nurture, the type of skill sets that could accommodate, this very serious international and national commercial apparatus entering into rural areas. You need people in Africa that could accommodate that and capitalize on it. So education, I think, is absolutely essential.
There's one more question up there, yeah? Sorry, it's another question behind here first.
Yeah, thank you very much. I work in Southern Africa, and I think that it's all very well saying they should make more money from their properties, but surely one of the biggest concerns is that the people growing these crops don't have security of tenure. And as long as they're growing crops on communal land, it's very difficult for them to get money to invest because they can be suddenly moved on. And I think one of the biggest challenges that Yara faces is we have to address the issue of land tenure, because commercial farmers who have security of tenure will always be successful, but these smaller farmers in places like Mozambique, Zambia, Namibia, Botswana, where I work, it's communal land and they can so easily be moved off. And that's always going to affect food productivity and food security. Thank you.
I mean, I'm happy to talk about that for a long time. And I can't agree more. And I would not claim that it's ignored by anyone with a serious commitment to Africa and land and agriculture. But how do you deal with it? Someone needs to start figuring out how they could deal with it properly.
Maybe the word collaboration is really important in that case as well.
I think the DFID, the UK government, now taking over leadership of the G8 and the new alliance on food security and nutrition, they have the 3T type of issue, complementing Obama and all that with tax, trade and transparency. And they have already starting scrutinizing, for example, countries receiving a lot of UK money on the land transparency issue. I know, for example, in Tanzania, they are in dialogue with the government and related resource environments to deal with the land issue. And if Africa cannot deal with it, they will not harvest as much as they could potentially do, because it's too complicated as it is now, yeah?
Another question, yes?
What you're saying, because Africa is growing, any country stopped the AIDS, and some other place is the things go in the right direction. But I have a question. What about the China competition with China? They are very interested in African continent as well? Have you a big competition with them for selling your product?
I mean, Yara is a very special. I'm not here to advocate too much for Yara, but you know, very few can compete with Yara's engagement in Africa. I mean, you have a lot of opportunistic traders. I'm not saying that all of them are coming from China, but as a professional fertilizer company, you know, the way we have approached business development and commitment to Africa and development, you don't have too many to compare with, I think. In general, I don't think we should be too afraid of China and China's involvement in Africa, you know. The world needs to be shaken up, you know. Traditional aid community has had the privilege of dealing with Africa for too long, if you ask me my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.